Section 5.2 of the textbook is on the quadratic formula and quadratic equations. So what we're going to do here, this is going to be like possibly many videos because I want to go over two separate worksheets that go along with section 5.2. We're going to start off with the worksheet that says the quadratic formula at the top, and it's probably dated for April 21st. So that's where we're going to start off. And we'll start with the definition of a quadratic equation. So you might notice that in the copy of the worksheet you have, this says definition, a quadratic formula is of the form, but I realized that's a little bit possibly confusing, so I took it out. So a quadratic equation is of the form ax squared plus bx plus c, where a, b, and c are real numbers and a is non-zero. We say that x is a root or solution to a particular quadratic function if, when I plug in x equals star for all of my x values, so right here, and I, simplify all of this and add up this stuff, I get 0. So in particular, a solution means when I plug it in, I get 0. So you might remember this as an x-intercept. So if I draw a quick picture of this, maybe here's a quadratic function, equation, whatever we want to call it. Then where it crosses the x-intercept is where the roots are or solutions are. So okay, so way at the beginning of this class, we were completing the square. So we've already been solving quadratic equations, but now we're going to do it the way that you'll probably do it for the rest of your life, which is by the quadratic formula. And we're going to derive the quadratic formula. There's no D here. We'll derive the quadratic formula step by step by completing the square. And remember that our goal here is to find all of the solutions. So find all solutions to ax squared plus bx plus c. And remember, we're assuming that a is not 0. Otherwise, we just have a linear equation, and that's something we already know how to deal with. So I'm going to go step by step here, just following the steps of completing the square. So first of all, we're going to divide everything by the leading coefficient, which is a. So when I divide ax squared by a, I get x squared plus b over ax plus c over a equals 0, right? 0 over a is just 0. The next step says to move c over a to the right side of the equation. So we'll do that by subtracting c over a from both sides. So minus c over a minus c over a. And that gives us x squared plus b over a x equals negative c over a. Okay, so remember from completing the square that we want this left side of the equation to be a perfect square. As it's written now, it's not, but because I have an equation here, I can add b over a divided by 2 and then squared to both sides to make a perfect square on the left. So x squared plus b over a x plus b over a divided by 2 squared equals negative c over a plus b over a divided by 2 squared. Okay, so this might not look very helpful right now, but if I rewrite b over a over 2 squared, what is this? This should be, so b over a squared over 4, so b squared over 4a squared. And I'm gonna erase this right here so that we can put the simplified thing there. So we had b squared over 4a squared. And if I want to add these together, I need a common denominator. Or a common bottom, if you will. So I'm going to multiply the left side, this negative c over a, by 4a. So up top we have negative 4ac over 4a squared plus b squared over 4a squared. And that's going to leave us with negative 4ac plus b squared over 4a squared. Okay, so this is a little bit maybe confusing because of the way I've written it. But on the left-hand side of my equation, I have this x squared plus b over ax plus b over a divided by 2 squared. And then on the right side, I have this 4ac plus b squared over 4a squared. The next step says to factor the left side of the equation and simplify the right side. I maybe got a little bit ahead of myself and I already simplified the right side. So this is in green, and that was the common denominator stuff. So remember how we can factor the left side. It will always factor as x plus b over 2a squared. And this will be equal to negative 4ac plus b squared divided by 4a squared. The last step tells us to solve the equation for x. So just like when we would complete the square, I need to get rid of the square root. So I will take, not the square root, I need to get rid of this power of 2. So to get rid of the power of 2, I'll take the square root of both sides. And remember that when I do that, I get x plus b over 2a equals plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 4a squared. And then to solve for x, I'll subtract b over 2a from both sides. So minus b over 2a minus b over 2a. So we get that x is equal to plus or minus. Let's simplify the square root a little bit. Notice that in the bottom, I have 4 times a squared. I can take the square root of that and just get 2a. So I'll have x is equal to plus or minus b squared minus 4ac all over 2a minus b over 2a. And if I add these common denominators here, I get negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And that is the quadratic formula.